Guns. Number one.
Hello, and thanks for watching another episode of ARFCOM News, your twice-weekly dose of the finest 2A propaganda. Today I want to tell you about some breaking news which really ought to surprise nobody, except maybe those two kids in the back of the class who always smelled a little funny. Former aides told the Washington Post that Donald Trump quietly pushed for a Salty Boy ban before being told what a monumentally stupid that move would have been back during his tenure. Given his numerous anti-rights statements prior to the election and his support for red flag laws and banning bumpy boys and whisper pickles during his term, it shouldn't exactly shock anybody. Thankfully, some of his aides talked some sense into him back then, but ironically, they say he was afraid of the NRA. As if Lil Wayne would have taken time away from suit shopping to even notice. What do you folks think? If alternate history Trump had pushed for an AWB, would the NRA have even stood up to him?
Prepare to meet Kali in hell.
But it would be impossible to produce quality 2A propaganda like this without some sponsors, so let's pay some bills. Today's video is sponsored by TNVC.com, who says, why trust your eyes to some back alley ripper doc when TNVC has everything you need to own the night? And by Winchester. Check out their new Lake City Brown Box M193. It'll be available on Brownells by this weekend. And as always, you'll find links down in the doobly-doo.
Some sack time. You look like shit.
Nebraska is also taking a shot at being the 26th state to pass permitless carry. They have enough votes to override the governor if he did veto, but the governor has promised to sign it, so why isn't it already a thing? Opposition filibustering, that's why. The only uncertain thing here is whether LB 77 will have time to get the third and final reading it needs for a vote. So, whether or not you live in Nebraska, let's give those folks a hand and call 402-471-2271, ask to speak with one of their many fine barrel-aged politicrators, and tell them to let LB 77 get the vote it deserves. The head of the AFT has now officially called for a near-total ban on private ownership of arms. No, not that AFT. The American Federation of Teachers. This Muppet is their union boss, and she recently made a statement in a speech that we need to do what Scotland, Australia, and New Zealand have done in regard to banning guns. Well, she didn't technically go so far as to say out loud she wishes to repeal the Second Amendment. That's precisely what it would take to get to that level of almost total control those authoritarian states enjoy. So, good luck. President Poopy Pants
Guns. Number one.
held another embarrassing press conference a few days ago where he stammered his way through multiple false statements. At this point, I honestly, can somebody check on him? Let's just have a listen, shall we?
I'm a Second Amendment guy.
Phenomena.
Second Amendment guy.
Phenomena.
Amendment guy. But our states, everybody thinks somehow the Second Amendment is absolute. You're not allowed to go out and own an automatic weapon. You're not allowed to own a machine gun. You're not allowed to own a flamethrower. Guns would be the #1 killer of children in America.
Your Majesty, you look like the piss boy. And you look like a bucket of shit.
Okay, sport, I could dig it. I guess I'm a second phenomena kind of guy too. But it is legal to own fully automagical machine guns in the US if you're wealthy. Like all laws intended to disarm the masses, there are exceptions for the elites and their protectors. If you can drop tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on it though, you can have practically any kind of weapon you want in the US, legally. But it costs a lot of time and money to do the paperwork and the background checks, and transferable machine guns are prohibitively expensive on their own. Conversely, actual military weapons of war...
You like the Elton John song Rocket Man?
I don't like soft ass shit.
Oh, you don't?
You know, that is like real military surplus flame throwers are entirely unregulated at the federal level and legal almost everywhere. As you know, enjoying fun in certain jurisdictions is a punishable offense, and they are most undoubtedly fun. And his last statement is only true if you count adults through 19 years old as children and ignore every year before 2020 and after 2021. Because when you do that, you can focus on a period of time where motor vehicle collisions were at an unheard of low and suicides were at a tragic high. So really, couldn't we say the government is the #1 cause of death for children? But the Stairmaster did get one thing right. At least he admitted he has no authority to regulate guns any further than they already are. I mean, for a guy who gets distracted by ice cream on the regular,
My name is Joe Biden. I love ice cream.
you honestly gotta be surprised he still remembers where he works, let alone the constitutional limits of his responsibilities. So everybody give him a hand, bless his heart.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Alas, he also seems to believe Congress does have the authority to disregard the U.S. Constitution.
I'm a Second Amendment guy.
Biden's AFT nominee, Stephen Diedelbach, is a loyal pencil-pushing bureaucrat who has never been issued a firearm in his life, so he's gonna have to study real hard which end is the loud end and why a short shooty boy is more dangerous than a long shooty boy.
Click. This one's an SBR. All right, moving on.
Because he's been invited to testify in front of the House Judiciary Committee. The chairman of the committee, Jim Jordan, criticizes the ATF's lack of transparency, particularly in regard to the brace rule. He also indicates Beetlejuice will need to be ready to justify the reversal of decades of previous ATF policy on the same matter. And he hints the director will have to explain why he thinks the ATF has the authority to make rules in light of the recent EPA court ruling. 3 of his staff members will also be invited, so I'm sure the pasty-faced drone will refer to them constantly and throw him under the bus any chance he gets. But any way you cut it, this is definitely going to be entertaining. Nothing of any substance will come of it, of course, but it will still feel good watching them squirm. And now, for your moment of zen.
Time for the heavy stuff. Clack, clack, buckshot!
Hey friends, do you like pews and pew-related things? Do you want to help us keep delivering you pure, uncut American pew propaganda at the low, low price of free fitty? We literally couldn't pay the bills without our sponsors. So do us a solid and get yourself something nice from them. You deserve it. I love you.